Tell me what you need. Tambourine. Yeah, you can play if there's a fee. You watch your old mama bleed. You like a dog without the teeth. You start to play, you play it slow. You start to die, you play it more. I seen gods dying young. Welcome to the orchestra. Work. They try to put their drugs in me and gay blinds so I can read the story in front of me. Is they the one, none of me. I am a doll upon a string. They pull it, I had to sing. So no word, we'll set your free. Now no word, we'll set your feet away. Right. And no word, we'll set you free. 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 Down by the end of tracks, living hell. Down by gas, prison cells, smoking stack. Down by the end of tracks, living hell. Down by gas, prison cells, smoking stack. So no word, we'll set you free. No word, we'll set you free. This is Club Orchestra. This is Club Orchestra. We'll set you free. No word, we'll set you free. We'll set you free. Work.
One, two, three, four.
As a wrestling fan, one of my favorite aspects about being a part of the community is just how passionate a lot of people are about preserving the history of the art form, not just as a means to uncover some hidden gem that otherwise would have been lost to time, but as a mirror to look at the trends, styles, and cultures that help fans pinpoint the moments in time to what was, to what is now, and how what came before helped influence the wrestling we see today. Thanks to the efforts of the likes of Classic Pro 83, Jack Shear's Graps, and the many video essayists that cover those classic wrestlers and matches on YouTube, decades worth of classic wrestling has been preserved for generations to study, analyze, and most importantly, enjoy. That is, when promotions are willing to let it be seen. But on top of being so eager to share the history of wrestling from specific promotions and time periods, it also helps get a lot of new fans into different styles of wrestling, showcased by different promotions in Pro-Res, Lucha, Joshi, various territories in the US, and the subject of today's video, Shoot Style. Shoot Style being the hybrid of various martial arts to generate a realistic full-contact form of professional wrestling, playing down the more flashy and theatrical elements of the more popular companies at the time. The most recognizable promotions being the UWF, Battle Arts, Kingdom, and Pancrase. But for the purposes of this video, we shift our attention to the Union of Wrestling Force International, or more commonly referred to as the UWFI. Founded in 1991 and lasting till 1996, acting as a successor to the UWF and continued its focus of bringing professional wrestling back to square one in terms of presenting itself as a legitimate combat sport. To further establish the UWFI's credibility, the company would appoint NWA legends like Lou Thesz, Billy Robinson, and Danny Hodge as promoters and trainers, all centered around their top star, a student of the legendary Antonio Inoki, Nobuhiko Takada. Now, fellow YouTuber Queen did a fairly deep dive on Takada in his Sakuraba documentary, and I'm not going to step on his toes too much when discussing him, but in a nutshell and for the purposes of this video, Takada is a pretty strange mark for himself, so much so that in 1992, as a part of the partnership the company had with the legendary NWA champion Lou Thesz, Thesz allowed Takada to utilize his 1950s NWA World Heavyweight title as a marker for legitimacy as the UWFI's top prize, calling it, and I shit you not, real Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. Even better, because no one in Japan wanted to work with Takada, he could make grandstand challenges to call any champion from the many promotions in the country, and when they ignored or denied the challenge, Takada could claim they were all scared of him, as an acknowledgement that Takada was the real pro wrestling champion of the world. Misawa, scared. The Great Muta, bitch boy. Chono, more like, no. But of all these grandstand challenges, there inevitably was one man who stepped to the ace. The man they call Vader. Now, I feel like most people watching this need next to no introduction when it comes to Vader, but it is important to note his place at the time in the eyes of the Japanese fans to establish his legitimacy as a threat to Takada. By 1993, Vader didn't just beat, but obliterate God in defeating Antonio Inoki in under 3 minutes upon his New Japan debut match in 1987, and would go on to be one of the more accomplished foreigners at the time, winning the IWGP Heavyweight Championship 3 times with a combined record of 451 days, defeating the likes of Shinya Hashimoto, Riki Choshu, and Stan Hansen to gain and defend the title. Also, as a relevant marker of Vader's success in wrestling in 1993, Vader was deep in his run as WCW champion, having wars against the likes of Sting and Cactus Jack. And following Vader's acceptance of Takada's challenge, the UWFI offered Vader a lucrative short-term deal, where he would go on to claim several victories in the promotion, defeating the likes of Tatsuo Nakano, Kazuo Yamazaki, and Aoki Sano, further proving his legitimacy to fight Takada. Sure, Vader in his style of wrestling was impressive in his victories in the UWFI, but there is much more Takada is fighting for than just a title. Takada is defending the legitimacy of real pro wrestling. The wrestling that the likes of his teachers and generations before him laid the groundwork for. In this fight, there are no gimmicks, no flashiness, and no pinfalls. Tap-outs, knockouts, and the pure burning will to fight only. And what follows is the trilogy to prove who is the real, undisputed wrestling heavyweight champion of the world. December 5th, 1993. Meiji Jingu Stadium. Over 40,000 watch as an elderly man opines over the specialness of what it meant when he faced an opponent in a stadium and crowd much similar to the location they are witnessing in for the same title that hangs in the balance this very night. This man is Lou Thesz, the longest reigning NWA champion of all time, and that opponent was Riki Dozan, the father of Japanese pro wrestling. As Thesz speaks, we are introduced to the two combatants as they prepare for their date with destiny. One is Nobuhiko Takada, the undisputed real World Heavyweight Champion. The other is the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, the man they call Super Vader. As Thesz speaks, he informs the crowd that pro wrestling is the most sophisticated combat sport in the world, and dedicates his life to perpetuate this beautiful sport, and the momentous nobility of the man who wins this bout as the undisputed real world champion. As these words are repeated in Japanese to the 40,000 plus in attendance, we are allowed a window into each man's psyche as they warm up and try to put themselves in a sense of ease to ward off the nerves of what they are about to do. This isn't just two men fighting for pride or for championships, this is two men fighting for the honor of an entire art form. The reason I'm dedicating so much to this introduction is that despite what you will say about Takada, his booking, and how corny the descriptor of real is, everything about the way the uwfi is able to utilize its presentation and pageantry grants this match a sense of monumental weight and reverence that, had this been any other company, it probably wouldn't have been allowed to. This is most represented by the national anthem of both men's country playing, where the respective countries' flags cross-dissolve over their faces. It generates the atmosphere of two men carrying the identity of their home nations on their shoulders to represent their style as the strongest in the world. Generations of both American and Japanese pro wrestling flow through them. It means something. Even before the bell rings, we as viewers get to feel that this means something, and that we as viewers know that pro wrestling is the most noble sport in the world. And it is one two men are willing to fight tooth and nail to prove, much like generations before them had done. The opening section of the match sees Vader control the momentum by overwhelming Takada in the corner and using his weight as an advantage by planting Takada into a mount where he can land a series of nasty palm strikes, headlocks, and sleeper holds that forces Takada into the ropes. This is a great introduction to the role and dynamics that Vader brings to these matches. Is Vader the most technical wrestler? No. But there's a thoughtfulness in the way Vader utilizes his size to smother Takada. When Vader isn't using his power advantage to drop heavy clubbing blows, he's forcing Takada to exert tanks of energy by forcing Takada to move Vader's massive 400-pound frame on the mat. And when he is unable to escape, it makes for desperate moments where Takada's only savior is the rope to break the hold. And should Takada be in a position where he's too depleted to move, God help Takada if he ever finds himself in the center of the ring. It adds dimension to Vader as dangerous, where Vader doesn't need to rely on dropping you on your head or getting his signature forearm clubs and lariats to the face, which, don't get me wrong, is also shown to be effective. But whereas Vader utilizes his size and power, Takada counters with his quickness and technical acumen. This dynamic is exemplified in a moment where Vader tries to get into a vertical base, but Takada snatches Vader's leg to get him on his back for an armbar attempt, forcing Vader into a rope break. Takada also has a thoughtfulness in his strikes, kicking the back of Vader's leg to knot his hamstring to remove his vertical base, not only giving Takada a target to work on, but also making it harder for Vader to pull his massive frame up to answer the ref's count. The match then clicks into a whole new gear as Vader's frustrations explode in a furious takedown, forcing Takada to leave to the outside. Everything here leans towards Vader being the favorite in this match, as no matter what Takada throws at the Mastodon, Vader just drops him with slams and keeps him grounded with a variety of holds, forcing him once again back to the ropes. But Takada, being the more technically sound combatant, never wavered from his strategy, as allowing Vader's frustration to flow leaves him vastly open for Takada to work his injured leg, removing his vertical base, where he in turn unleashes a series of vicious kicks as Takada gets the overwhelmed and flustered Vader into a position where he can execute the armbar with force, wrenching the arm back and forcing the great monster to bellow in pain for the tap-out victory. In 14 minutes and 23 seconds, Nobuhiko Takada vanquishes the behemoth from Boulder to prove unrivaled that he is the undisputed, real, world heavyweight champion. This is a great match. An excellent implementation of roles and dynamics that show why the David and Goliath archetype in wrestling is so beloved. Vader is a beast here, taking every opportunity to throw his weight to keep Takada grounded by smothering him with his size and folding him with his devastating raw power. Takada, on the other hand, being the smaller man, also gets the chance to be really compelling as well, in believable ways to get the advantage by honing in on a specific target and making it a problem for the larger man, forcing his combatant in a position where his emotions take control as he loses focus where Takada can capitalize. If I do have one issue though, is that even though the match is meant to be presented as a legitimate bout, there is a feeling that something is being held back. One could sense that this match could have shifted into another gear to really establish a level of aggression to make the momentum and drama feel more palpable, as each man becomes more and more desperate to seize victory. But that is the brilliance of the first act. There's plenty more where that came from, to prove who truly is real. August 18th, 1994. Nippon Budokan Hall. Over 16,000 eagerly await the finals of the uwfi Pro Wrestling World Tournament. In one corner, we find Nobuhiko Takada, the reigning and defending Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, defeating the likes of Kazuo Yamazaki, Gene Liddick, and the man who he defeated to win the title in the first place, Gary Albright, to make it here to the finals. Before the match, Takada has boasted to the people of Japan that he will defeat his opponent in under 5 minutes. In the other corner is Super Vader, who truly never felt the same after losing to Takada. Following his match with Takada in 1993, Vader shortly after loses his WCW World title to Ric Flair at that year's Starrcade, and comes up short in his rematch, submitting to the Nature Boy at the 1994 Super Brawl, and has a losing effort against his longtime rival Sting for the vacant WCW International World Heavyweight Championship later in the year at Slamboree. Sure, Vader is dominant and imposing in the ring, even proving so by defeating the likes of Salman Ashimikov, Masahito Kakahara, and Kiyoshi Tamura in the uwfi World Tournament, but the gold eludes him, a feeling very foreign to him as nearly every year Vader has wrestled to this point, he has won a world title. But now, in 1994, he is never able to get the job done when it matters the most. A proverbial bridesmaid, never the bride. And that question of can Vader actually win a world title again does creep its ugly head in here as well. And to Vader, the question becomes, how do I become whole again? Perhaps the answer lies with Takada, where Vader makes a prediction of his own. He will knock Takada out to get that answer. Let's go. Even from the bell ring, the match expertly sets the tone and establishes continuity between the two as both men dodge each other's devastating offense. Takada dodging Vader's signature lariat, and Vader dodging Takada's roundhouse. This opening salvo does 3 things really well in setting tone and narrative. Number 1, it shows how much both men have learned from their first match and become mindful of what their combatant is capable of with their signature strikes. Number 2, it informs the audience of what each man's strengths as a striker are. Vader being more focused on upper body strikes with his big clubbing blows in the form of his lariats and forearms, and Takada being more focused on lower body strikes with his lightning quick kicks and knees. And number 3, it fulfills the predictions that both men are trying to tell, with Takada trying to go for an early victory in under 5 minutes, and Vader predicting a knockout on his part. Much like their first match, Vader takes an early advantage, but Vader is far more aggressive here, throwing big bombs and slams to get his knockout victory, getting as high as an 8 count on Takada. Takada fires back with kicks from the corner and later a suplex, taking Vader down into a position where he can execute his signature cross-arm breaker. Curiously enough, the same move that defeated Vader in their first match. Now, you can look at this in 2 different ways. Takada going for this move early knowing it can beat Vader shows Takada trying to get the definitive victory in his prediction of winning under 5 minutes. Sure, but it also keys us into something that the audience knows, and that Takada is very fearful of. That this is not the same Vader from last year. He's become much more determined and vicious, and Takada needs to match every bit of Vader's aggression and display urgency to even stand a chance. And as the match goes on, Takada continues to attempt to work on the arm, with another cross-arm breaker attempt, with Vader escaping and holding Takada into a heel hook position to work on the powerful legs of Takada. But Takada is able to take hold of Vader's arm again and transitions into a Kimura lock attempt, but then Vader reverses and transitions that into a headlock to take dominant position. I just love how scrappy and desperate this sequence is. Both men know each other's strengths in striking and focus their submissions on those parts of the body while also fighting for control. And even with the headlock, it's easy to look at headlocks in wrestling as a basic rest hold that transitions into another spot, but Vader, being so big and strong, makes the hold look extremely believable, as well as the way his facials translate genuine exertion as Takada kicks his legs desperately to find his way out. Which he does, and this happens. I love this spot. The closed fist to Takada's face is immediately admonished by the ref and completely hated by the fans. This is a great way of showing the audience that there's a sanctity and honor of this match, and that there are specific rules to the style of wrestling that separates it from everything else. That must be respected, lest the match completely devolve into a mindless brawl. Vader knows this, and is willing to let his frustration not get the better of him by showing Takada his forgiveness, and Takada accepts. Sportsmanship, baby! Takada keeps going to the well of targeting Vader's arm and overwhelming him with kicks, but the more he does, the more Vader weathers his offense, Vader dropping Takada with his signature blows. The gap between the two is slowly closing. The longer the match goes, the more Takada becomes increasingly desperate for a quick victory, but Vader has learned much from the previous encounter and is able to find unique counters for Takada's offense. Exemplified in a callback from their last match where Takada tries to pick his ankle to get Vader on his back, but Vader, sensing this, drops his weight and traps Takada in a tight head scissors. Once again, playing into part of Vader's size advantage, forcing Takada to carry his weight and exert energy to escape his powerful legs, proving that Vader has a bit more dimension to him than just being a powerful brute. Although Vader's straight dumping Takada on his head with a deadlift overhead suplex works just as well. Following that, the match just turns into this glorious slugfest where both men are dropping each other with their best shots. Vader flattens Takada with a trio of lariats, and Takada absolutely drops Vader with a disgusting high kick. Vader gets up at 7, and I just love the look in Vader's eyes as he stares a hole of death at Takada, as if to say, "Is that all you got, bitch?" This lone kick completely changes the trajectory of the match too, as the way Vader sells it informs the audience that a sleeping giant in Vader is awake that absolutely wails on Takada with stiff shots and the roughest looking powerbomb I have ever seen, practically deadlifting the man. Jesus. It's at this point I should probably mention that a lot of the appeal of shoot style as a genre comes from the stripped down mechanics of the match, where a lot of the more theatrical offense like suplexes, slams, and other high impact moves are traded for more traditional grapples, strikes, and submissions. When something like a suplex happens, it feels like this massive shift in momentum, where to have it feel like a major form of offense, opponents will purposefully sandbag the move to give it the feeling of genuine struggle that, when it's successfully pulled off, the match could logically end at any moment, because the amount of effort used on both parties to pull it off feels earned. And at that moment, Vader has completely shifted the momentum. As the ref counts, the title is slowly escaping Takada. But if there's one thing we know better than anything in wrestling, it's that when things seem their bleakest, that's when the most powerful force in the world kicks in. Fighting spirit. Because remember, fighting spirit isn't about kickouts or no-selling, it's the will to keep fighting, even when the body is broken and the mind is weak. It is the fire in your heart that lights your soul ablaze, that will keep you alive. And the way Takada's eyes light up as he stares in defiance amongst a white-hot crowd, being cheered, knowing he may lose, but he will fight like hell to go out on his own terms, that, my friends, that shit is real professional wrestling. But alas, that is the double-edged sword of this beauty, knowing that this fire only burns so long that, when it is snuffed out, it takes itself with you. Vader collapses Takada with one last lariat before his body gives out. Vader fulfills his prediction and KOs Nobuhiko Takada in 19 minutes and 24 seconds. After nearly 700 days, the real Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship has finally changed hands, and is now owned by the man they call Super Vader. I fucking love this match. The platonic ideal of what I enjoy most out of professional wrestling. Epic in scope without going overly indulgent with its length, narratively deep within the match's own details, scrappy grappling that has actual purpose rather than having to fill time, that later explodes into moments of pure blissful violence, all while being able to utilize its own rule set to get maximum investment. Aggressive, tight, and most importantly, compelling. The kind of simplistic but grounded and gritty fight that pumps adrenaline straight through your veins. Both men's dynamics are just excellent here. Vader in particular feels like he's a much more evolved and determined competitor here, being able to withstand and find ways to escape Takada's offense by using his size and strength advantages to their maximum. Takada, on the other hand, is so fiery and quick here. The way he's able to land his kicks and submissions, and the way he exhibits fighting spirit, gets the crowd unbelievably invested to see him win. He so convincingly is able to match Vader's own vicious onslaught that you really get swept up in the emotional roller coaster of each time he knocks Vader down, and vice versa. You just want to scream in hopes that he gets back up, and get deflated when he inevitably cannot answer the call of 10. If you really want to find complaints in this match, you could say Takada's strategy of going for the cross arm breaker does get a bit repetitive, but personally, I always found it out of desperation and continuity from their previous match to let the audience know that this is the one move that can definitively put Vader away. And if it isn't broke, they'll fix it, which is Takada's character flaw. By being overly confident in how he defeated Vader previously, he does feel a bit cocky here, believing he has the one answer to Vader, and because of that, can boast his ability to defeat Vader in record time. But it's that cockiness that completely ignores that Vader is much more improved since their last encounter, as Vader has every response possible to circumvent Takada and make him wrestle his match. And because of that, Vader, in under a decade of his career, has won his 11th World Championship. Vader is now the undisputed champion of the world. But we still have one last chapter in this story. And with the rubber match soon to follow, now more than ever, it is time for both men to prove who is truly undisputed. One last chapter to truly decide who is the real pro wrestling heavyweight champion. Following Vader's victory over Takada in 1994, Vader is able to find his success as champion again. As he closes the year out and goes into 1995, Vader wins the WCW United States Championship, holding it for nearly 3 months, and successfully defends the Real Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship against Gary Albright at the uwfi January 16, 1995 show. Takada, on the other hand, fights his way back to the title picture, defeating the likes of Victor Zangiev, Naoki Sano, only losing to Gary Albright via submission to close 1994, which costs him his shot at the title at the previously mentioned January 16th show. But after a quick victory against rival Kazuo Yamazaki, it's time for Takada to step back into the title scene. Takada has gotten a win over Vader in the past, but history has shown that Vader can beat Takada, and it's only a matter of time before both men, once again, have a date with destiny. April 20th, 1995, Nagoya Rainbow Hall, today known as the Nagoya Civic General Gymnasium. Over 8,000 in attendance witnessed the ceremony in reverence for the title being fought over. The legendary Billy Robinson, Danny Hodge, and Lou Thez stand alongside Vader and Nobuhiko Takada as the national anthems of both competitors play. Once again, much like in their previous matches, there is an importance here. Both men, once again, must carry the style, history, and honor of their nations on their shoulders to establish legitimacy towards the Real Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship as the single most important title in all of wrestling. This very title has been fought for by the likes of Orville Brown, Vern Gagne, and Lou Thez. And tonight, Nobuhiko Takada and Super Vader do battle for it one last time. For Vader, this title represents total dominance. From winning titles in America, Europe, and even Japan, only Takada stands in his way, and putting him away once and for all may very well cement his claim that he is the undisputed champion of the world. But for Takada, he carries decades of pro-res lineage of his teachers and those who taught them. Riki Dozan, Antonio Inoki, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, and now stands Nobuhiko Takada. Takada has one last chance to prove that his style is the strongest, and to prove that if he can put away Vader one last time, that he truly is real. Let's go. One thing becomes abundantly clear even before this match begins. There is no respect here. Takada goes for a handshake to start the match, and Vader slaps him, causing the crowd to erupt in boos. This fires Takada up enough to blast Vader with some vicious kicks, knocking him completely out of the ring. That fires the crowd up. Flustered and surprised, Vader goes on to respond with a goddammer of a chokeslam, setting the pace of the match perfectly. I love that this match forgoes any sense of a prolonged feeling out process compared to the last few matches, as it translates how personal the title has become to both men and the lengths both will go to have it. It lets us know that this isn't just a match. It's a pure fight to become undisputed. Vader in particular is just such a bastard. He cares little for honor or lineage. It's all about pure dominance, and he'll sink to any low to hurt Takada. Displayed no more perfectly than following a grappling sequence, he performs a dirty tactic of just kneeing Takada in the face, and later battering him in the corner, even when the ref desperately tries to get Vader off of Takada as he refuses to heed his count. And all this helps endear Takada to the audience, as any moment of offense from him erupts the crowd into cheers to see our hero bring himself back into the fight. Takada once again focuses on chopping down the big man with his patented kicks to Vader's leg to remove his vertical base and get the arm breaker applied. And the way Vader sells these kicks is perfect comeuppance for how dastardly he was earlier, which helps make Takada's comebacks feel really palpable, given how destructive and mean Vader is, consistently knocking Takada down with one strike, only for Takada to try anything and everything to get the monster down with his kicks and submissions. When we finally see Vader get taken down and feel genuine pain, it's really well earned. And as an audience member, we can sympathize with Takada's struggle from fighting underneath. Excellent utilization of David and Goliath dynamics. And Vader does not let up. Following a gruesome powerbomb, all seems lost for Takada. Even if Takada fires back, Vader is there to knock him back to Earth. As the ref counts, it seems like a repeat of last time. And the title, The Pursuit of Real, once again, escapes him. However, in moments like this, take nothing away from this video, if not for one very important lesson. When all seems hopeless, when the body is broken and the mind is weak, all that remains is fighting spirit. The crowd roars as Takada throws everything at Vader. Kicks, hands, knees, until one fatal blow drops the behemoth, and as Vader stirs, the crowd counts along with the ref. Maybe this time, this moment, in front of his fans, his country, and the spirit of decades worth of pro-res behind him, Nobuhiko Takada can be champion again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10! In 15 minutes and 40 seconds, Nobuhiko Takada finally becomes the real pro wrestling heavyweight champion again. This is, predictably, another great match. Perhaps one not as technically deep or thoughtful as their second bout. Takada working Vader's leg is much more one-dimensional here, and one could make the argument that they're playing the hits with the formula they have of Vader battering Takada with a single hit, and Takada desperately fighting back from underneath, but it's all made so much more emotionally resonant given how exciting and fiery everything is here. From Vader's commitment to being a despicable monster and how gruesome he makes his offense, to Takada's inspiring level of fighting spirit against such an unstoppable force for maximum crowd investment, it's just impossible to not be swept up in the emotions here. Sometimes, matches are just great not because it inspires the mind, but because it fuels the heart. And on this night, no one had more heart than Nobuhiko Takada. Unfortunately, despite how high the highs were of Nobuhiko Takada winning the real Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, this night was only downhill following this bout. Their biggest foreign draws in Gary Albright and Vader would quit the company later in 1995, leaving a massive hole in compelling competitors, and even possible future champion Kazuo Yamazaki leaving for New Japan Pro Wrestling shortly after. Trying to find a solution for the company's money problems, Takada formed a partnership with New Japan, with the caveat of New Japan having full control over the booking of inter-promotional matches. This of course was because New Japan still held resentment towards Takada for bad-mouthing their company's legitimacy, which in turn frustrated Lou Thesz as he saw this as an erosion of the UWFI's legitimacy, relinquishing his support of Takada and the UWFI, taking the heavyweight title away from the company. To make matters worse, Nobuhiko Takada made a grandstand challenge to Rickson Gracie of the legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Gracie family, and after Gracie declined, roster member Yoji Anjo couldn't take this disrespect and stormed Rickson's dojo in America, and was warmly welcomed by getting the dog shit beaten out of him by Rickson. And once a photo of this embarrassment made its way to the Japanese press, it shattered the legitimacy of the UWFI, and more specifically, Nobuhiko Takada. No way Takada could challenge him to a legitimate match if one of his own got exposed like that, and shortly after, the UWFI would fold in December 1996. Takada soon left pro wrestling behind for MMA, only to come back to wrestling as a president of the short-lived promotion Hustle from 2004 to 2009. As for Vader, he would experience some major downward trajectory after being fired from WCW in 1995 and experienced a middling run on the WWF from 1996 to 1998, before finding his groove again in All Japan in late 1998. Dropping the pillars on their heads to become a two-time Triple Crown champion, widely considered by many fans as the absolute best run of Vader's entire career. And going into the 2000s, as Mitsuharu Misawa forms Pro Wrestling Noah, Vader becomes a roster member from 2000 to 2003, before finishing up his career in the odd New Japan tag, WWE appearance, and Will Ospreay match, before retiring from in-ring competition in 2017. Unfortunately, Vader, Leon White, would pass away from heart failure after battling pneumonia in 2018. And while he wouldn't live to see it, in 2022, Vader would be allowed immortality into the annals of the WWE, by being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by his former wife and son, forever remembered in the induction speech as not just a great wrestler, but an even greater father.
The reason I am so successful, my lovely wife, Debbie. For without her, I could be nothing. And to my little boy, someday he will be champion. Because through him, I get my strength.
But in a vacuum, we will always have this trilogy. We have two men who gave everything to prove their legitimacy, with their skill to craft and project their beliefs into what is real in professional wrestling. And this pursuit of real and realness in pro wrestling, and what makes it so important, has a double meaning for me at least, because, well, it's been hard for me to enjoy wrestling like I used to. Not that there aren't promotions out there putting out really engaging storylines, matches, or competitors, but it's so rare that something hits you. You know, hits you in a way that reminds you of why you fell in love with this art form, and in that pursuit, sometimes you just end up feeling burnt out to where everything feels dull. And this trilogy brought me back to why I love these jacked up dudes in their underwear hitting each other and dropping each other on their heads. If it's real to them, then maybe it's real to me. And it's real to all those who upload all these old matches for us to enjoy from so many different promotions, and it's real to the many video essayists who choose to immortalize those promotions and matches in the way they, much like me, analyze, critique, and praise them. It's all due to their tireless work, love, and passion for all this that we get to enjoy so much from all over the world, past and present. And this dumb little video was my personal love letter to all those who let me share in their work. Because much like Nobuhiko Takada and Super Vader, the pursuit of real in professional wrestling is as deep as it gets, and it will never die. Thank you. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary buds, if you made it to the end of this video, I can't thank you enough. If you've ever uploaded a match to the internet or linked a match through the forums or Discord, I honestly made this for you. And I hope I did this community right by talking about and recommending you guys some great matches, as it's not lost on me how genuinely grateful I am to be a part of this wild community. Special thanks as always to SamTheVAMod. He just continues to kill it with these intros, and is someone I consider a great guy to just talk to anything about. I appreciate the conversations we have, dude. Equally, I want to shout out my Discord server, the ever-chaotic Fujita's Egg. Ever since last fall, they not only link each other with great matches, but also be there for each other when things get rough in our personal lives. Kind of becoming this strange found family, but with more Super Dragon and Necro Butcher match recommendations. You guys know who you are, and you rock. Them recommending me these matches was the inspiration to even make this video in the first place. For my socials, follow me on Twitter at AndosMan94, and now I have a coffee! An extra way you can support the channel for $3 a month. You can get videos a day early, as well as early sneak peeks into what I create next. Till next time, stay safe, much love, and see you sometimes.